interlobular veins, and then it goes into the arcuate veins. See how it's, the blue one's here? Now it's arcing. Okay, then it goes into the interlobar veins, but there is no segmental vein. There are only segmental arteries. So all the interlobar veins come together to the renal vein, and then it goes back to the inferior vena cava. Okay, stop. Renal cortex and the renal medulla. Okay, so here is the renal, the Bowman's capsule. Okay, so right here, Bowman's capsule. Then this is the proximal convoluted tubule, loop of Henle, right? Descending limb, ascending limb, loop of Henle. They don't do the thin and thick. You don't see it. And then here is the distal convoluted tubule, and then here's your collecting duct, which goes all the way through to the renal papilla. Okay? If we remove that stuff, you can see just the blood vessels. So what you see here is L is showing you the glomerulus. This is the renal capsule, the Z. This is the renal cortex. This is the interlobular artery, afferent arterial, glomerulus, and that would be an efferent arterial. Okay? Which is afferent? I mean, it's really hard to tell. I wouldn't ask you on this, which one's afferent or efferent at this point. Okay? I mean, I would assume here, this would be afferent, but they don't really continue it on. The key is that these things here are the peritubular capillaries. Now, some books say that they only point to it here on models, and some point to it down here. Now, these are peritubular capillaries, but the very special ones that come right next to the loop of Henle is called the vasa recta, and I know you remember that. The vasa recta from lecture. So this is, it would be almost like the arcuate is coming here, and then an interlobular would be up here. Okay? So this would be special peritubular capillaries called vasa recta. Okay. And when the glomerulus, because they're showing little red things, is inside the Bowman's capsule, and together is called a renal corpuscle. They're working together as a unit. Arterial right here, going into the glomerular capillaries, and then coming out efferent arterial. While you're here also, to look at the ascending limb of the loop of Henle, you have right here called the macula densa cells, and you also have juxtaglomerular cells, and this is here where you have the juxtaglomerular apparatus, the JGA, which helps with renin when your blood pressure is too low, and then you start the RAS system, renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. Right? This is the proximal convoluted tubule. This is the Bowman's capsule, or glomerular capsule. This is the Bowman space, or glomerular space. I call it Bowman space is better. These are the podocytes, which kind of anchor everything onto the capillaries. So basically, the Bowman's capsule has two layers, a parietal layer, which is here, and the visceral layer, which is here. And that's where the podocytes are holding on. Okay? All right. And then in between the blood vessels are the mesangial cells. So angio, remember, it means vessel, and mesa means like middle of, but it's not in the middle of the blood vessels, it's in between the blood vessels. And the renal corpuscle is the Bowman's capsule surrounding the glomerulus together. So here's the glomerulus. Okay? This is the Bowman's space. This is the Bowman's capsule, the actual parietal layer, but just Bowman's capsule is good enough for me. Okay? Here is the ascending limb of the loop of Henle. Here is the macula densa cells, the juxtaglomerular cells. So this would be called the juxtaglomerular apparatus, JGA. Okay? So here is your kidney, renal cortex, renal medulla. Here are the renal pyramids. Okay? The renal columns are in between the pyramids. Here is the ureter. I think, I'm not 100% sure. That's what it looks like. And this would be one of the two blood vessels, I'm not sure. Okay, so here are your renal veins, and look, oh, they're nice and blue. Okay, so here are your kidneys, adrenal glands here, and this would be inferior vena cava. Here are these two little light things. You see the red line in the video? So this is your ureter, this is the left ureter, here's your right ureter, urinary bladder, and then the urethra would be down in here. Okay? Inferior vena cava, abdominal aorta, kidney common iliac artery. You don't need to know that, but don't confuse it. Don't think that this is your ureter. It's not. It's too big. Those are your arteries. Okay? So those are the renal arteries. So if you look at the veins here, and then arteries there. Okay. All right. So here's the renal pelvis, kind of like the area right before it leaves. This is the ureter. Here is like minor calyx, kind of major calyx here. Cortex, medulla, and the capsule on the outside. Okay? So this is the os coxa. This person is looking at you. Is this male or female? Male, because there's the prostate gland. So this is the urinary bladder. Okay? These are the vas deferens coming in here. Seminal vesicles, the prostate, right? And that's the pubic symphysis. Okay? You want to stop there?